Look, I don't know much, but I know this much. Or maybe this is all I know. Either way, reportedly, Taylor Swift just grossed over $2 billion during her concert tour. Enough disposable cash that she gave all cast and crew.
Yes, I saw this.
Was it $197 million combined in bonuses?
I think I saw that.
I think we should maybe make this our last podcast and shift our careers.
Go work for Taylor Swift. I saw it because some guy said, my dad drives a truck for Taylor Swift, and he called and said, I'm going to be able to pay for your entire college education. And he's like, what are you talking about?
Wow.
That's where I saw it.
You think I'm too old to be a stagehand? I mean, I can still sling it around, some of those cases,
you've got
guitar
charisma.
cases.
You've got charisma, Paul. You should probably find something for you to do on stage.
Yeah, I was going to say, you played safety.
Dancer.
You were a safety in high school. Can't you be like one of the dancers?
Anyway, here's the football application to this, okay? If all these cast and crew members counted on these sort of bonuses, if they felt vested in the process, if you will. I mean, there's a cause and effect here for grossing more than $2 billion. If I'm an NFL GM, would I set my salary cap so that there's an extra 10 to 20 to 30 million unused that I'm going to split up just based on making the playoffs or number of wins? For example, an NFL team makes the playoffs. You get a bonus for playing in a playoff game. You get more if you win.
From the NFL.
From the NFL.
Yeah, correct.
And then as you advance, you get bonuses for every round.
Correct.
What if you did that as a team? I know every player has little incentives, or most players have some incentives built into their deals. What if there was just a flat rate for making the postseason, winning X number of games, winning playoff games? Because most every NFL team is really top-heavy in terms of the salary structure.
Right.
So about 40 to 50 guys on the roster. I mean, you talk about accountability through the entire locker room and it trickling through. If everyone knew that kind of cash was on the line week to week, then maybe you wouldn't have this roller coaster ride through a regular season.
Well, number one, I'm pretty sure the NFLPA would have a problem with that you're not putting that money out. And two, like if you had that much money under the cap, and I know there are teams that do, but like there is a salary cap floor over like a 3-year period that you have to hit. So there's that. My question is, what's better per hour? Well, when we're talking about billions, maybe. But I mean, Juan Soto, I saw a thing that said Juan Soto is getting more money over 15 years from the Mets than Woody Johnson paid for the Jets, than Robert Kraft paid for the Patriots.
I don't understand baseball. Let's just throw that out there. I don't understand how you, one, have somebody, an owner, who can afford that, and two, the fact there is no salary cap, so it's pretty much just if you can afford a certain player, then you can have quote-unquote super team. Juan Soto is 25, 26?
26.
So 15 years. You're telling me you're wanting to pay a guy until he's 41 when you know he's not going to want to play baseball probably in 10 years?
Well, number one.
How does that work?
In terms of affording it, it's all cash flow, Dani. It's all cash flow. You're right. I mean, ask the Angels about Albert Pujols when they gave him whatever he got, like a 15-year deal.
How does that work? How does one person have that much money?
But to Danny's point, when I saw the terms, 15 years for what, $765?
$765, yes.
I actually looked at the 15 was more striking to me because at this point, the dollars, I'm numb to the dollars. I mean, it could be $765, it could be $1,700, whatever. It's the 15 years that you're committed to through age 40.
Well, here's how I would explain that. If the
that's more mind-numbing.
And you talking about the money like it's nothing is the point. Like, if you're saying I got to get this guy on my team and it's going to cost me $765 million, period, end of story, because that's what it is. And there's no raises, there's no bonuses, baseball and basketball contracts. There's no incentives. You just get the salary. It's all guaranteed. So if you're doing it, then what's the difference between saying he's getting a 15-year deal and obviously not on as grand of a scale, but like, for instance, and they've done it a million times here, but I'm going to use one that I happened to look up the other day, Byron Murphy. Byron Murphy is a free agent after the year for the Vikings, former Cardinals cornerback.
Yeah.
He signed what was essentially a 2-year deal last year, so he's in the second year of his deal. But when I looked it up, there's 5 void seasons on it. So in theory, the Vikings signed him to a, whatever it was, $15 million deal for 7 years. They just voided all the years. So what's the difference between that and this? There is no difference. This is like if you sign him to a 7-year deal for $765 million and you just put 8 void years on the back of it, right?
I guess, but isn't the accounting much different in the NFL?
Well, yeah, the accounting is much different because there's a salary cap, but there is no, just like Dani said, since there's no salary cap, it doesn't matter what you do. Just like Shohei Ohtani is getting $680 million from the Dodgers, and he's not getting 600 of it until like 10 years from now because they deferred it. Like, it doesn't matter.
Okay.
And let's not.
What do you do with that kind of money?
I'd love to find out.
Like, seriously, what do you do? Right? Like, don't you get bored at some point of all these extra houses and cars and
that's
and
when you
trips?
become
I hope they start
NFL
giving
Man of the Year
back.
and start giving away. Like, what's
involved in the community.
what's the first thing you do if you got mega rich? What's the first thing you do?
Paying off my student loans?
No, that's dumb.
Something.
Like, for me, I don't need a big house. My house wouldn't be any bigger than it is right now. In fact, my house, now that my kids are out, is probably too big. But I want enough land that I can build a basketball court, indoor basketball court.
Okay. I think the first thing I would do is plan a family trip somewhere really nice. Probably take a private plane there.
Would Brian be on that trip?
Yeah, he's included in the family.
Well, I just wasn't sure.
The private plane would
When we
actually be
talked
for
off
him.
the air,
He'd be
I'm
a
not
lot
sure
more,
about Brian anymore,
my dad would be a lot more comfortable in a private plane when you take into account all the neck and back surgeries he's had over the years.
Private planes
commercial.
are good.
I wouldn't buy one.
Well,
I would
you got
use
a
one.
whole fleet of cars coming, right?
I think the first thing would be a big family vacation.
So my brother-in-law sent me a house listing the other day with a 25-car garage. That would be on the list.
Well, but you need to fill it.
Would you? I know what Paul would do.
I
He
have
would
no problem
he
filling
would
that.
extend the family cruise he went on with his in-laws this summer to be even longer than 4 days.
I'd get the dog Cheeto into a fat farm is what I do.
You can tell
he could fund
the Cardinals.
He could fund Ozempic for dogs.
That's right.
You can tell the Cardinals did not have a good game this weekend.
But to answer, before we get to football, to answer Darren's question, it was a lyric in a Bruce Springsteen song.
What's that?
Poor men want to be rich men want to be king. So what happens after you get rich?
Well,
human nature is you want the power. So if you're Steve Cohen, the owner of the Mets, and you got hedge fund money, okay, 20, 30 billion in the bank.
Yeah.
So you would buy a team?
You buy a team and you want to be king of baseball, and you're willing to spend whatever it takes to try and beat who?
Matt Ishbia.
The crosstown Yankees and everyone else.
So you would buy a baseball team?
Oh, I'm saying
he's saying that guy
that's what that guy would do.
What would you do? You didn't answer the question.
He did. He bought a 25-car garage house and fill it.
Well, and the 25-car garage house would be on some unnamed island in the Pacific. So just to let you know.
We would never see you again, Paul.
It's all right. I'm already in solitary confinement most of the day. So Seattle beats the Cardinals 30-18.
Oh, yeah, Cardinals football.
And not sure where you want to start. I'll raise my hand. Both JG and Nick Rawlis pointing out, quote, mode of play.
Yeah, I was surprised about that.
I throw that out there because that's imminently correctable. That's most definitely under your control. Has nothing to do with X's and O's, nothing to do with who's healthy, who's injured, nothing to do with talent level on your roster. Mode of play.
Let me ask you this question, Paul. That is... Because I asked Nick Rawlis about this. This is the first time we've heard this from either one of them all season. Is this the first time you've noticed it or just the first time you've said something? And he basically said, there have been points, there have been players here and there. That feels, if you're willing to go public, especially with this coaching staff, it feels like, hey, we want to send a little bit of a message here if we're going public.
Yeah, a little bit.
To me, the most troubling part about something that stands out to the head coach and defensive coordinator being the mode of play, the motor in which you were playing the game, the intensity you were showing up with is that's going to be a turning point in the season, that game. The players and the staff knew what was on the line going into that game. And that was keeping the control, keeping your destiny in your own control. Now, the season's not over. The Cardinals are not eliminated from the playoffs. It's just a tougher hill to sled. The fact that this is the game, that had so much on the line, and that's the game where you have the mode of play that is supposedly not up to the coaching staff standards, that's what is frustrating.
But it wasn't from the get-go, was it? I mean, the Cardinals came out, went 6 plays, 70 yards. The offense said, you know what? We've been struggling in the red zone. I got your red zone right here. 41-yard strike, 7-0 lead. Yes, Seattle went down the field, 13-play drive, but you hold them to a field goal.
Which is what the defense has been doing.
So, okay. I mean, to me, it went hand in hand with the 2 interceptions.
Yes, although I will say this, and I've said this a couple other places, like the 2 interceptions were killer. And I'm sure we'll talk about Kyler a little bit more in depth in a minute. But, again, this was a team that had the ball twice down by 7 after the interceptions that didn't do anything with them. And this was a defense that had the Seahawks 3rd and 10 and the Seattle 20 and sent the house at Geno Smith, and he barely got the pass off. And Smith and Jigba was able to basically pick it off the turf before it hit and get like a 25-yard gain, and that changed the complexion of the game in a lot of ways, that little sequence, even after the interception. So, yes, the interceptions were killer because the Seahawks scored 2 touchdowns off of them, but there were other places where the entire offense and or the defense kind of fell in too.
I mean, it wasn't totally unlike the end of the Minnesota game. The first quarter of the Seattle game at home, you pick up right where you left off in Minnesota. 2 picks in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, that's
intentional grounding, but you still had the ball with $1:13 to play and 3 timeouts. So you still had your chances. Obviously came up short, but mode of play, once again, coming full circle back to it, and the fact that it's been cited, yes, it does most definitely feel like the coaching staff is sending a message, talking through the media to the locker room. And I thought, and now this is me, just complete speculation at this point, all right? But when practice was mentioned multiple times, that it begins in practice, it's why we practice it. I wonder if that's where the message starts, that guess what? It needs to pick up effective Wednesday.
That's where all the changes start, especially when you're looking at the penalties, which Gannon and offensive coordinator Drew Petzing both cited as technique. Second straight week, first in Minnesota, then at home against Seattle, that there were penalties on crucial downs. Cardinals were on 4th down. James Conner went way past line to gain, and then it was called back because of a holding call on Paris Johnson Jr., and the Cardinals ended up punting. And there were multiple instances in Minnesota. There were 3 penalties when the Cardinals were on offense in the red zone. This is a team that's, up until these last few weeks, those type of penalties have been uncharacteristic, with the exception of Green Bay, which was just a stinker of a game across the board. What was different about this performance against the Seahawks was in the past, when Arizona's offense has been sluggish at times, the defense has been able to hold their own. That was a different story. They were getting gashed on the run by Seattle, giving up more than 100 rushing yards in the first half, and entering that game, the Cardinals had gone 3 straight home games, not giving up a single touchdown. They end up giving 3. So in the past, it's been, if one side of the ball isn't necessarily having a great start or isn't consistently finding the end zone in terms of the offense, the defense has been able to hold their opponents out of the end zone and keep it an even score, and that just wasn't the case in Seattle. And then you're bringing in the struggles on special teams, and struggles is an unfair term to use because kicker Chad Ryland was having to step in as the punter after Blake Gilligan went down with an ankle injury. It's just one of those games where it just felt like the Cardinals were going uphill against themselves.
Yeah, when you're on the sideline and you look over and the kicker is practicing his punting into the net, suboptimal. Let's put it that way, late first half. Okay, speaking of the run game, defending the run, or lack thereof, because it had been 5 straight games the Cardinals had kept opponents under 100 yards rushing. Seattle not only had a season high, that's their most rushing yards in a game since late 2022, $176 over 6 yards a carry. After the game, the News Tribune out of Tacoma, they had Laken Tomlinson quoted as saying that he credited the O-line coach, Scott Huff, who made critical adjustments mid-first quarter, gathered the entire Seattle O-line around him, and changed the blocking plan on the fly to more gap schemes, meaning a lot more pulling guards, even pulling tackles, and just coming down hard and trying to open up interior rushing lanes, clearing guys out, an inside pass via pulling linemen. So he changed from a zone scheme to this gap scheme. And if you listen to both JG and Nick Rawlis, they credited Seattle with a pretty good adjustment from game 1 to game 2.
Game 1 in Seattle, it was defensive lineman Leonard Williams who was wrecking the game, and the offensive line couldn't hold their own. it wasn't necessarily just Leonard Williams, this rematch at State Farm Stadium. It was Seattle's defensive line as a whole. I know we're talking about the other side of the ball, but I'm just saying the line of scrimmage in the trenches was still a struggle for the Cardinals on both sides of the ball. And stopping the run is something the Cardinals defense has done a good job the last couple of weeks. So to have that type of performance, especially when it wasn't even their starter, Kenneth Walker was out. It was Zach Charbonnet. And it wasn't just that first line of defense. Tackling as a whole, with the exception of Budda Baker, who had a career-high 18 tackles in that game.
No comprendo.
Was a struggle. I mean, Charbonnet had that 51-yard rushing touchdown, and when I watched it back, I counted 7 different Cardinals defenders that at one point were within range of him that he just ran through.
Well, look, he's 6'1", he's 220 plus. He's a big back. I know on his weekly TV show, Jonathan Gannon compared him to a David Montgomery and just how hard he runs, how hard he is to bring down. But when you have a head of steam and you're getting to the second level, full speed as often as he did, there's going to be a lot of, A, broken tackles, and then B, maybe the willingness to get to the ball at that point starts to wane in a game. I don't know. All I know is if the key to this game is a rebuilt motor, we can go down to the Arizona Ford dealers in the parts counter and get a nice Coyote V8 or something. We get a rebuild engine.
Always comes back to cars with Paul.
Could put one in. Maybe I need to. You know what?
He's got a 25-car garage he's got to fill,
doesn't he?
Once upon a time, not too long ago, wasn't there a hurdle in the Cardinals locker room? I'm gonna go buy a Coyote V8 at the parts counter, and I'm gonna put that crate engine right in the Cardinals locker room. What about that? Put an engine right in the middle of the locker room. What do you think about that?
You're gonna work on
motor.
it. Like
put a motor on.
You're gonna work on it like during
as a symbol, Darren. Work with me.
That's lovely. Okay. Are we gonna surround it with like?
All right. I know. Well, look. If you're gonna boil this down, can it be this simple? Every NFL game comes down to 1, quarterback, 2, get to the quarterback, 3, protect thy quarterback. And the Seahawks won all of the above.
I think that's pretty fair.
Pretty fair, right?
I mean, what do you want me to say? You boiled it down, and it was boiled.
So now, okay, and okay, here's where the plot thickens. And I talked to Gannon about this in his TV show and after the game briefly. How much of it has had to do with complicated schemes that pride themselves, defensive schemes you've gone against, that pride themselves in making a quarterback and an offense think. And if you were to have a top 5 of defenses in the NFL do a really good job disguising, Brian Flores would be in there, Mike McDonald would be in there. I think Nick Rawlis would be in there as well. But now, after seeing Mike McDonald twice and Brian Flores in the last 3 games, and you're getting a New England defense that's very similar to what Brian Flores runs, not nearly the same talent level perhaps as Minnesota, but you're going to get a similar challenge into, and you heard Drew Petzing talk about it with the media already this week, a lot of different guys who play a lot of different positions, who's coming, who's staying, which guys in which position doing what. So guess what? Like I said, the plot thickens. There's going to be a similar challenge for the quarterback to read and react against this scheme.
I guess where I get hung up a little bit is I didn't think the offense played poorly in Minnesota against that defense. They didn't score touchdowns. That's where they effed up, but They moved the ball. They did a lot of things that were good. You didn't throw the ball down the field, but again, they score one more touchdown. That game is completely different. So I'm wondering if the Seattle defense, as of right now, this is no bueno because they're in the division, but it's just a bad matchup with what McDonald is doing, because those were the 2 games where you're like even the 2 interceptions in Minnesota, they didn't feel like Kyler screwing up the offense. One was he was trying to throw the ball away and he didn't get it out of bounds enough. And the other one was at the end of the game, yes, he needed to throw it farther, but there's a lot going on there that to me goes a lot more than like the first interception. And I don't know exactly what happened on that first interception against the Seahawks in this last game. Jonathan Gannon said after the game, Kyler threw it to the right place, which kind of stunned me. And then the other one, which was an underthrow, no question. And then Seattle comes out afterwards and says it was a blown coverage, and only a fantastic play by Kobe Bryant, the safety, even made it a play. So Kyler apparently went to the right place there too. He just didn't get it far enough, and Kobe Bryant made an excellent play.
All right, so let's drill a little deeper. Let's go beyond being Captain Obvious and blaming anything and everything on the quarterback all the time. How much of it is the receivers, the targets, being in the right place at the right time? Because this has been a persistent storyline and narrative throughout this season, right?
When
you talk about the, quote, details of the passing game, at least I believe that's code for, hello, receivers, read the coverage like the quarterback's reading the coverage, be in the right place at the right time, have your eyes around, get ready for the football, and when they take away Trey McBride with some sort of diamond-type triple coverage deal they were using, I would do the same thing if I'm a defensive coordinator. Put it all on the Cardinals receivers. Make sure James Conner doesn't beat you, Trey McBride doesn't beat you, and then ride with whatever else the Cardinals bring.
You can't put it all on the quarterback. It truly is all 11 on every single play. The fact that Murray, I know that's coach speak, but
well, no. And I don't mean to cut you off, but I'm listening to all three of us talk right now and thinking how many people are listening to us and just cussing the hell out of us. Because they're mad at Kyler.
Well, then fine. Let's start with the quarterback. Kyler Murray did not have a great game. He did say that much. He went and he started his press conference and said that he let the team down. It was self-explanatory. He cannot throw picks like that. There is more than just on Murray, though. And I can understand if you want to give fair criticism to the quarterback. They take the most flack and they get the most praise, and that is just what comes with the job. He was under constant duress. That offensive line was still struggling against the Seattle defensive line despite making the personnel change at right guard and having the rookie Isaiah Adams get his first start and have him play the full game. You had your tight ends really involved in the blocking game, and it was a struggle. You could tell that they were getting worn down as the Cardinals offensive line. Your receivers need to be able to create space, and they need to get open and be in the right spot at the right time, especially if the quarterback is having to get rid of the ball quickly. You look at the numbers, and when you're looking at more than 100 receivers in the league who are eligible to be recorded on this stat, and Michael Wilson and Marvin Harrison Jr. are getting some of the fewest yards per separation. You can look at that positively and say, okay, they're not getting a lot of separation. They're still making these contested catches. You can also look at it and say, how can you get open better? How can you make life easier for your quarterback? It's a two-way street. You need your quarterback to elevate the players around him. You need Kyler Murray to be able to have the accuracy, the ball placement, to lead his receivers, not throw it behind them, not underthrow them. You also need your receivers to be able to get in the spot at the right time, at the right place, and be able to create something when your quarterback is under duress the amount of times that Murray was against Seattle.
Let me throw this stat out here. All right, I violate my own rule here, no math. But Darren, you tell me what to make of this. When Next Gen Stats comes out after the game and says Kyler averaged his second fewest air yards per attempt in a game this season, just over 5, while throwing a season-high 29 passes under 10 air yards, meaning he attempted just 9 downfield passes, going 4 of 9 for 80 yards, a touchdown, and the 2 picks. Those are on passes over 10 yards.
Right. And the 2 picks and the touchdown were all in the first quarter. So obviously he dialed it back after all that happened in terms of looking down the field. Now, whether that's pressure, whether that's guys weren't open.
Was that the shell coverage, too high safeties?
It might be, hey, I got to start throwing to Trey McBride all the time, and he's shorter on shorter routes than everybody else. I don't know. Look, I get what everybody has said about Kyler. I totally understand it. It's been 3 games. It's been the first time in his career he's had back-to-back games with 2 interceptions or more. It's not how you want it to play. But it feels like there's a lot of people that aren't playing the way you totally want them to play. And I don't want to, the game this past weekend obviously got sideways, but they were in that Seattle game, the first Seattle game, most of the way. And obviously they led the Minnesota game most of the way. I mean, what it just reminds me of, again, is the margins are so tiny. And there's a lot that goes into it. You watch the Bengals on Monday night, and Joe Burrow is probably in the conversation with Josh Allen for MVP if the Bengals are 8-4 instead of 4-8 or whatever.
Yep.
But because their defense stinks, he's not. And
the O-line is maybe average.
Yeah, so,
maybe.
And I'm not trying to sit here and say that Kyler Murray is Joe Burrow here or anything like that. I'm with Dani. I understand why people are upset with the quarterback because that's who you're going to look to first. I think there's other things involved, and I think ultimately, you're still 6-7. I mean, this team isn't 2-10 or 2-11.
And the people that are clamoring for more scrambles or run plays or things of that nature, when you looked at how quickly the pocket was collapsing, more times than not, Murray was not even going to be able to get outside the pocket, and he was having to go through it more. And there's just so many pieces that have to go right in order for a play to go right for the Cardinals. And they are just not working cohesively with all the different levels at this point. Now, again, a fair amount of that does go to the quarterback. That is every quarterback across the league. And that's something that Murray went and took complete responsibility for when asked about the interceptions and asked about the receiver's role in that. He would stop the question being asked and say, it's all on me, and take all the responsibility. So he's aware of how his play was and how that does not meet the standards for him or this team or the fan base.
I do think the scrambling thing is tougher against Seattle. I think they handle that better than a lot because they have seen it so much. And I know it's a new coaching staff, but plenty of those players have seen it before.
Yeah. Because you know what? For my money, the most confounding thing about Kyler's season is going into the bye, he was number one in the league on the run, scrambling, ostensibly under pressure. He had a ridiculously good passer rating. Since the bye, under pressure, and I don't know how they calculate these numbers, but here's what Next Gen Stats has come up with. Since the bye, 3 games, 7 of 27 when under pressure, 59 yards passing, 0 touchdowns, and all 5 picks. What's the difference before and after the bye in terms of Kyler when under pressure? I don't have the answer to that. I'd love to know when you're looking at the
really
film.
good defenses.
Yes, exactly. Let's go multiple choice. Brian Flores and Mike McDonald. That's number one. Number two, how much is on the receivers? If they're doing everything they can to take away Trey McBride, who despite all that still had 12 catches in each of the 2 previous games coming out of the bye, then all right, how much is on the receivers? Winning the one-on-ones, because to my eye, Seattle went with a lot of man coverage with Reek Woolen and Devin Witherspoon, 2 top-notch cornerbacks who are going to be a problem and a headache for many years to come for every Cardinals offense. So there's all that involved. And then if you're shutting down James Conner and you don't have the play action, obviously that's big. So that's just, but speaking of confounding, it's probably the best segue I can think of for the midpoint of the show.
I thought you were going to talk about Bill Belichick coaching in college. That's confounding. But anyways.
Unless he's just doing it for leverage with NFL owners, which could
be the case. A lot of smoke out there today, Paul.
All I know is I've recently gone to HR to talk about my emotional well-being, and I cited one thing and one thing only, and it happens to be this trivia game.
It's time for The Wise Guy, the world's fastest-growing Cardinals quiz show. The stakes are low. The winner gets absolutely nothing. Here's your hostess with the mostest, Dani Sureck.
As Paul rolls up his sleeves to try and get his 3rd win of the season.
Here we go. Intimidation.
Let's go, Paul. You know that I'm always rooting for you.
This is I'm going to resort to intimidation now as I stare down Darren here to begin this segment. He's going to be a little mentally discombobulated here. Here we go.
Darren, would you like to go first?
I am going to go first, Dani, and I'm going to take question number 3, please.
I don't appreciate the whispering, the calculated, he seems a little too at ease right now. I don't like that.
Okay, here we go. This 2012 Cardinals draft pick and 3-time Pro Bowler spent 3 seasons in New England before finishing his career in Miami. He is also an accomplished musician. Can you name him?
Wait a minute. A Cardinal, a Patriot, and a Dolphin?
This Cardinals 2012 draft pick, 3-time Pro Bowler.
Musician.
Oh, okay. I know who this is. Is it Justin Bethel?
It sure is. He played the drums.
Go Devils!
What connection does Justin Bethel have to ASU?
Nothing. I just needed to get that out there. Did you know that they're in the college football playoff, Paul?
Oh, man.
Cam Scatterbo should have been a Heisman finalist.
Yeah, that's what he says.
I think we should ding Darren for misplaced product placement. That's what I think right there.
I was sitting here drinking, and I'm like, hey, wait, this is an ASU cup. How nice for me.
How nice for you.
Okay.
Paul, pick a question.
If only Darren would act like he's been there before, but it's been since 1996 since he's been there. So, okay, I'll go with number 2. Of course, for my alma mater, it's been
How's ACC, Paul?
My alma mater has been 1958. Let's go, Dani.
Okay. He wasn't a star, but this former Patriots player made the trek to the Cardinals in 2008 and teamed with Kurt Warner to convert a late 3rd and 16 that sealed Arizona's NFC wildcard victory over the Falcons.
Okay. All right. I got the trek. I like the trek.
Yeah, that is pretty good.
Steven Spock.
Correct.
How about that? 3rd and 16. Was it 3rd and 16?
3rd and 16.
Third
It was
16.
3rd and
Good
16
call
with
right there.
2:17 to
All right.
play, and it was a 23-yard connection.
That's right. Maybe the biggest mind blow of Kurt Warner's career, and that's saying something.
That pass?
That completion to
Yeah.
that player in that moment.
When the ball was in the air, I'm like, oh, please let him catch it. And he was so wide open. And the worst part about Steven Spock is the next week he tore his ACL in the first half against Carolina and
Okay,
didn't get to play.
cut Darren off. Unnecessary flex of unneeded knowledge. I don't know. He's trying to intimidate me right now. I'm not buying it. Nope.
I'll take.
Yeah, Paul is doing the intimidating.
That's true.
right.
What?
1 and 4.
I'll take number 1, please.
Going above and beyond with added information. Not
After
necessary.
After spending the majority of his career in Arizona, this player capped his 14-year NFL career by winning a Super Bowl ring with the 2003 Patriots.
Wait a minute. We're tied 1-1. I'm actually in this, right?
Yes.
So I can't lose focus. Say it again, please, Dani. Here we go.
Lee, Paul.
I'm used to tuning out at this point. Say it one more time as I
At-
buy Darren a little time.
Here we go.
Okay.
After spending the majority of his career in Arizona, this player capped his 14-year NFL career by winning a Super Bowl ring with the 2003 Patriots.
He blocks. He catches. He runs.
Oh, dang it.
Larry Centers.
Dang it, he got
Correct.
that one. I was about to get that one. I felt it, Let's go. Here we go,
I
the
think
tie.
the way that fans now expect NFL kickers to make every single kick, no matter how far, I expect Darren to answer every single question. And then I'm shocked when he doesn't.
Quick thing on that. Because I saw this on social media when the Cowboys were playing last night. Obviously, Aubrey, their kicker, is amazing, right? He's made 90.3% of his field goals, and that's 8th in the league. How is that possible? I just thought I'd mention
I still can't get over Dani. You're supposed to be neutral. Sound like you're a bit of a fanboy for Darren in this.
I literally started the
come
segment
on.
by saying I was rooting for you.
Let's go. I missed that. Here we go. Here we go.
Paul,
I'm used to
have to
all
go
the
to the
haters.
tiebreaker
I'm used
today.
to so many haters and doubters and critics. Here we go. Namely, Chris Melvin. Here we go.
makes me so happy that
Here
you
we
get
go.
this question.
Okay.
Cheers is one of the most popular sitcoms of all time, which we know you love to watch.
I did used to watch. Here we go.
Oh, here we go.
Set in Boston, the show premiered in 1982. No, I
Whoa.
was not born yet. And
Wow.
featured main characters including Sam, Norm, Cliff, Woody, and the wisecracking cocktail waitress. Name the character and the actress who portrayed her.
Well, the character was Carla, and the actress married to Danny DeVito. Come on. Let's see here. Maria Basilini.
The character is Carla. The actress is Rhea Perlman.
Correct for the steal. That means Darren gets the
Excuse me
win.
for a moment.
You had it.
I mean, come on. Couldn't it have been either or? Name the character or the actress. Did it have to be both?
Well, maybe you can convince Darren to do winner takes all tiebreaker.
It's unbelievable.
I am so not doing
Rhea
that.
Perlman from the mid-'80s. It's just
You
unnecessary.
remember Danny DeVito?
I'm actually proud of myself. I didn't remember that.
Almost, should we do the tiebreaker?
Oh,
So
he didn't
yeah.
say no.
Yeah, well,
I
inevitably
was
I'm going to
expecting- there we
lose,
go.
and the
That's-
booth
that's
is going to
the music.
enjoy
Here we
it
go.
because they're
Closest
not
to the
tailoring.
number wins.
we
Pay
go.
attention, Paul.
Okay.
Former Cardinals pass rusher Chandler Jones was traded from New England to Arizona in 2016 and became the franchise leader in sacks with 71.5. How many sacks did Jones collect in his 4 seasons with the Patriots?
4 seasons with the Patriots. How many? Okay, I'm going to go.
Can't whisper, I have headphones on. Darren
right.
has shown me his answer, so you can say yours, Paul.
41.
That is what Darren wrote down.
No.
I don't know what we do in this situation. The answer was 36, and Darren was not doing winner takes all anyway. So
Okay.
Darren gets his 13th. Darren gets lucky number 13th win
with Paul.
of the season. Congratulations, Darren. You still win absolutely nothing.
You know what I don't feel a kinship with Paul? The picks. Dani, who did get 20, the streak got to 22. We figured out, right?
It did.
Yeah,
Because
15
I
last
had a
week,
clean
and
15-0 sweep last week.
This week, Dani had a very good week, 9-3. Paul was solid at 8-4. I happen to go 10-2. I lead the picks 135 up, 60 down. Paul second, 132 and 63. Dani 122 and 73. She'll be trying to go undefeated next week.
So
There
just
were a lot of teams on bye this week.
There were.
FYI, I took a lot of chances in this week's picks. I figured, you know what? There's only one thing worse than losing. It's being boring. So I started taking a lot of swings. I went with the Bears and a dead cat bounce of the new head coach, and that didn't work out so well.
Was it the 341 yards to 4
at halftime? When I saw that on my phone, I said, well, Paul, there you go. So my philosophy is I'm going to become the Mark Reynolds of these picks. It's either going to be home run or strikeout. It's going to be one of the. It's going to be a 200
Reynolds.
strikeout or 40 home run season, or maybe both.
I just hope you didn't pick the Jets.
Yeah,
Have we all learned to not rely on Aaron
I
Rodgers?
did not take the Jets, although I did make the mistake of taking the Chargers, and then doink, it goes in, and you pick against the Chiefs. Karma, never a good thing.
Was that because Taylor Swift has a song called Karma?
Yeah.
Is that why you did that?
See, unfortunately, a lot of my own biases and dislikes work into my picks, so I got to be a little more business-like about that. So
That's fair.
There we go. Yeah. And speaking of, now the Cardinals get the Patriots, who, minus Tommy, Tom Brady, all of a sudden, oh, wait a minute, they've already been eliminated from the playoffs at 3-10. So that's what's going on. But they do have the number 3 pick overall in Drake Maye, who apparently just recently during the bye, Alex Van Pelt got peppered with the Boston media asking, well, why didn't you start him earlier? He only has 8 starts under his belt. Do you regret now not starting him from the get-go?
He's the OC, by the way.
Alex Van Pelt. And so he gave a spirited defense of no, he needed those games behind Jacoby Brissett to actually learn and, glean the NFL way and all that sort of stuff. So
I think actually Jacoby Brissett actually got benched because he was doing that new Progressive commercial, I think.
I have no idea.
Paul doesn't watch TV.
I forgot.
Yeah.
Colt McCoy's in those commercials too. Have you seen
Now,
that?
I did see Colt McCoy in a
And
commercial.
Josh Dobbs.
And Josh Dobbs?
Yeah.
No,
Astronaut.
really?
Yeah, it's awesome. I mean, they're not all in the same commercial, but the whole idea is the backup quarterback. So
Okay.
I'm like,
see.
wow, look at all
okay.
these
And the guy
Cardinals,
comes off the
ex-Cardinal
bench.
Cardinals.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, New England comes in. Look, they're going to have like 3 rookies on their offensive line because they're purposely playing young guys,
Yeah,
according
they
to
do not
Gerard
have a
Mayo.
good offensive
So,
line.
no. So, look, you're a Cardinals team that the analytics say now has a 10% chance of making the playoffs. But if you win this game, you win at Carolina. You have the Rams, who now all of a sudden the Rams are doing what the Rams stinking do. Remember, a year ago they started 3-6 and they made the playoffs. Okay, but you know what? You have head-to-head against the Rams, second to last game, penultimate game. You beat the Rams, you sweep that season series in the tiebreaker. If somehow, some way, Seattle falls back to where they were before their bye and they lose to Green Bay and Minnesota, I get it. You're essentially 3 games behind them because you lose the tiebreaker. But the Seahawks still have a game against the Niners left, I believe, and they never fare well
Yes.
against Kyle Shanahan.
I believe you're correct.
Just sort of throwing a few things out there.
It's definitely still possible. The season's not over. The chances of making the playoffs are not 0.
Was it
You're-
over when the Germans bombed Pearl Harbor?
Somebody cut off Darren. I mean, seriously.
Golly, Darren.
What's been in your Arizona State Cup ever since the win? After
Just water.
what's been in there? Okay.
Yeah, I had the pleasure
Go
of
Devils.
watching the selection show with Darren. Pleasure is a nice way to put it in the press box.
Oh, I see. Okay. Really? Oh, so the no cheering in the press box doesn't apply when it comes to someone's alma mater in the selection
Correct.
show?
Also, doesn't apply 4 hours before kickoff.
I see.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
But as I was saying before
Yes,
Darren's
sorry.
outburst,
I was just trying to support your point, Dani.
The difference now is the Cardinals not only have to essentially win out, they have to start relying on other teams to lose. The wild card is a very difficult feat to now achieve because you're looking around the NFC and the Vikings, the Packers, and the Commanders all have anywhere from 2 to 5 more wins than the Cardinals right now. And all 3 of those teams have head-to-head over Arizona. So really your best chance of getting in the playoffs is to win the NFC West.
Okay, so both the Seahawks and Commanders are 8-5, 2 games ahead plus the tiebreak on the Cardinals. Who do you think is more likely to come back to the pack?
Commanders. I just think that Seattle coaching staff is legit. Mike McDonald obviously had the number 1 defense in like every single metric last year with Baltimore. Look at Baltimore's defense this year minus Mike McDonald.
Seattle is trending upwards and getting steam at the right time, whereas it's the opposite for Washington, who had a really hot start, and now they've kind of tapered off the last few weeks.
And the OC, Ryan Grubb, college guy, took him a while maybe to learn the NFL way, but he's starting to incorporate the run game more, obviously, based on this last affair against the Cardinals. And so he's learning a lesson that a lot of college coordinators learn, that, the run game is vital, not just sort of a necessary nuisance that gets in the way on your laminated play sheet. So, and they have 2 really good running backs, as we see. So, yeah. What I'm amazed about with Seattle, though, is Leonard Williams is Leonard Williams, but the rest of their D linemen, the rest of their O linemen, I'm not, at least I wasn't that impressed until this last 3-game stretch. But ever since they got Abe Lucas back at right tackle, it's been a different offensive line. That's my question with the Cardinals right now. Offensive line. Isaiah Adams obviously got every single snap, so they're looking for a solution. It doesn't take Jonathan Gannon and Monty Fort long. If they don't like something, they'll try and find another answer. They'll plug in another piece if necessary. I don't know how Isaiah Adams graded out, but I fully didn't expect him to get every single snap in that game over Tristan Colon. Now, my understanding is they liked him a little bit better against Leonard Williams because he's longer, he's younger, he's more athletic. Might not be as stout in the run game. He's probably going to get in the squat rack a lot in the offseason, Isaiah Adams, but beyond that, they did like that matchup a little better against Leonard Williams because if you remember from the first time against Seattle, they were just flopping him either guard. He was basically over either guard and et cetera. So, all right, what does that mean for the Cardinals, down the stretch here of the offensive line? Because then combined with Paris Johnson, somebody give me a thought on Paris Johnson, because that was a question that was asked to Drew Petzing this week, was it not, about the holding calls?
Yeah. I don't have an answer. I thought Paris was playing really well for most of this season. It's, the offensive, again, how much is it is who they going against, especially the Seattle game. I mean, it is possible for 2024 that the Seattle defense is just a horrible matchup for the Cardinals offense, and that's going to happen. And unfortunately, it just got in the spotlight because it was 2 times in 3 weeks.
And they changed out their inside linebackers. They cut their leading tackler. They brought in Ernest Jones. They have Tyrese Knight, who's been a real find in the middle of last year's draft. He's been really good. So different personnel, different results for Seattle. Don't have to worry about Seattle till next year at this point because you're done with them. But as the division leader, you still have to keep track of them. Speaking of a Seattle connection, Budda Baker, can somebody give me a thought on 18 tackles?
He was everywhere. He's always everywhere. That's probably the only player where if you're going to have 18 tackles, you're not going to be ringing the alarm bells. Because most times when you've got a player with 18 tackles and you've got your safety as your leading tackler almost every week, it's what is going on in those first 2 lines of defense. However, with Baker, it's less of that and more just he is everywhere on the field, and he is that much of a force to be reckoned with. He'll come off the edge, he'll go through the gaps, he will fly across the field to make a tackle. Continues to be a leader of the defense, and that's a career high. 18 tackles in a game. Sheesh.
Yeah, to your point, when I asked Nick Ross about it, he said, if you read between the lines, he sort of kind of meandered a bit, but he said basically if he's a 3rd-level safety and he has 18 tackles, yeah, that's a 5-alarm fire. But he's not. He's in the box so often. He's along the line of scrimmage. That's the answer to the question that I want from this season is, how are they using him exactly? And have they unlocked him? How much is he allowed to freelance? Troy Polamalu, had his ability to do what he wanted a lot, but he did that like more in his center field
Yeah.
It's like Budda sort of is unlocked in the box.
So what you're saying is you're going to go after the season, you're going to break down all his snaps and see where
we need an I-team investigation like immediately. We need an answer to the question.
So you're going to go watch the film now?
No. I'm not going to watch any film. I'm going to find some sources on the inside to let us know how is he being used. That's what I want to know.
Good luck with that.
It's a pending investigation is what it is.
You're going to have time for that? Bringing the motor in and out of the locker room?
That's right.
That's right.
First thing I have to do is get on down and find the crate engine and put it in the middle of the locker room.
Does your son know he's going to have to like come down here on a Saturday and help you move this thing?
That's right. Yeah. You know what? The auto tech course he's in right now, I'm going to, where's my keys to the game? Did I not grab my keys to the game? Oh my goodness. That's just.
Got any props over there, Dani?
It's poor. It's
no,
poor.
I didn't sweep.
Somebody change the camera for a minute while I find my prop. Here we go.
Then stop talking because it auto cuts to you every time you say
that's
something.
right.
That's
Okay.
true. So.
She continues
Here
to
it is. Here it is. Right here. I had it somewhere. I always have it.
What is the key to the game this week, Paul?
It's the crate engine, the motor play. We're going to put the engine in the middle of the locker room. And
it wasn't really showing the
it'll
key,
be a nice Coyote V8 5.0, and they can see that, and that'll be their inspiration and the key to victory this year.
And that'll be your walk-off, your drop the mic moment before we all go to work for Taylor Swift. Is that the idea?
Oh,
is
I forgot we're doing that.
Yes.
Wait, is she hiring? What are you saying? Is she hiring?
Well, she just ended her
She
tour.
certainly got the cash flow, as we said earlier.
So it might be a minute before she goes back on a 2-year tour.
I mean, can you imagine working on something for like 2 straight years overall? I mean, she's got the private jet to go fly to every Chiefs game, but like if you're just Joe Schmo driving the truck or as you're going to be the backup dancer, you're probably staying in, Finland or wherever the latest concert is. I'm just saying.
Darren, should we get? Here's the immediate.
She was in Europe. Was she not in Europe? Caitlin, where are you, Caitlin?
Yes, she was in Europe. She did have a Europe leg.
Dani, you're like me. You're wondering what's in his Arizona State Cup at this point, right? Are you not?
A lot of confidence.
Yeah, I'm sure that clear liquid right there. We're sure that's water. On Darren's behalf, I think we're going to end it right here. Okay.
Are we Swifties now? Is that what's happening?
See, right?
Whatever it costs to pay the bills.
No.
That's right.
I have my key to the game. We're going to take Darren's keys to his car as we say that'll do it for this edition of Cardinals Underground, brought to you by Pacific Office Automation.